Part 59. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan-San Buletinji. Chapter 619. Brett Brown's self-review is very simple, and he did not expect the 76ers to play so well in the first quarter, and actually held the impact of the Cavaliers' big three. The result of the tie in the first quarter also made Brett Brown begin to think that he should not have such a starting lineup in the first quarter. The point guard and shooting guard, Ismail Smith and Evan Turner, are not players with outside shooting ability, and the 17-game winning streak in November has long told Brett Brown that the most suitable lineup for Angzi should be a lineup that is full of shooters in addition to the big center inside. Obviously, this game is a game that needs to be played around Angzi after Mkawhi and Pau Gasol are gone. Therefore, from the first quarter, Brett Brown should send an outside line. It's the shooters lineup, so the 76ers offense in the first quarter will not be so difficult. So, after thinking about it, Brett Brown looked at Angzi, and, "Can you still play in the second quarter?" And 11 nodded immediately, "Of course, coach." Brett Brown also nodded immediately, all he wanted was Angzi's words. Immediately, he recruited all the players and began to arrange the play in the second quarter. In the second quarter, you go to the guest point guard, Troy Daniels, played in the second position, Francisco Garcia, in the third position, power forward Channing Frye, center Cole Aldridge. We play a fast offensive tactic. And you are in control of the ball. Don't worry about other players' ideas. You can play as you think you can get the lead. In short, our mission in the second quarter is to get ahead. In the second quarter, the mission of the 76ers was to take the lead. At the end of the first quarter, the two teams were in a tie-breaking state, and the first ball in the second quarter was the 76ers' possession of the ball. On the Cavaliers' side, they also put up a semi-main lineup in the second quarter. Seeing Angzi continue to play, LeBron James also appeared on the court, plus Matthew Dellavedova at the point guard position. Dion Waiters in the number position, Tristan Thompson and Louis Amundsen in the post. The Cavaliers' lineup is a bit defensive. Whether it's Matthew Dellavedova or the two power forwards inside, they are all defensive players. They don't have many weapons on the offensive end, and they clearly show up in the second quarter. The 76ers, who had a complete offensive lineup, met. A spear and shield duel is about to be staged in the Wachovia Arena. The first goal of the 76ers opening, Angzi controlled the ball to the front court, and the three shooters scattered around. Cole Aldridge was located near the basket. Angzi thought for a while and waved directly to let Francesco add to the sideline. West Asia appeared at the top of the arc and then stuffed the basketball over. Then, Angzi kicked the ground and immediately accelerated and cut into the inside line. When he rushed to the free throw line, Angzi suddenly braked again. The Cavaliers were responsible for defending Angzi, Matthew Dellavedova, who was swayed by Angzi a long time ago. As a result, Angzi received a pass from Francisco Garcia in the middle distance, moved a step horizontally, and directly pulled out his hand. Matthew Dellavedova rushed back, and the ball was still scored if the defense was not timely. At 27:25, the 76ers took the lead. But if they want to maintain this lead, they have to defend against the Cavaliers' offense. The Cavaliers' offense, LeBron James took the ball, and Angzi naturally posted it. In the face of Angzi's defense, James' offensive desire is not so strong, or he has not realized the importance of the situation. LeBron James feels that he can set aside the water for a while and wait for the opportunity. So, after the outside back and forth pouring the ball, the basketball arrived, inside Tristan Thompson's hands. Tristan Thompson beat Channing Frye. After turning around and hitting a layup, the Cavaliers evened the score. The 76ers' defensive lineup is indeed a problem, especially the insider Channing Frye. Once the opponent finds a one-on-one opportunity, it basically means losing points. So the 76ers who played this ball didn't have any ideas. The game continued and the 76ers attacked. Angzi followed the same routine. After he had the ball in the front court, he handed it over to Francisco Garcia, who had the ability to pass and control the ball. Then he started an air cut without the ball to avoid the Cavaliers' strict defense against him. Stubbornly. This time, Angzi bypassed Cole Aldridge's screen, caught the ball and shot, with a scream, hit it again. Angzi's consecutive goals meant that the 76ers' offensive lineup began to show his power. With the Cavaliers' offense, Angzi suddenly let go of LeBron James and began to constantly run on the defensive end to make up the defense. The 76ers also contracted the line of defense in time, not giving the Cavaliers too much space, and letting those who showed signs of paddling. Brown James lost his interest in singles with the ball. In this way, the Cavaliers played for 24 seconds, until the last few seconds before handing over the basketball to James. James forced Angzi to play, and the last forcibly missed the jumper. Inside, Cole Aldridge picked up the rebound, and a chance to counter-attack came. Angzi rushed directly to the front court. Cole Aldridge first handed the basketball to Francisco Garcia. Garcia made a long pass and passed it directly in front of Angzi. Angzi caught the ball, pushed LeBron James' defense back, made a small toss, and scored 2 more points. At the beginning of the second quarter, Angzi scored 6 points in a row and allowed Francisco Garcia to score 3 assists, and the score also opened up. The 76ers are 31-27, 4 points ahead of the Cavaliers. Soon, David Blatter, who was good at adjusting on the spot, made a substitution. He also found that the Cavaliers' offense was a bit difficult. He directly chose to replace Louis Amundsen with James Jones and let Terry Stan Thompson top the center and played a big and 4 small tactics. LeBron James saw the team's backwardness and understood the current situation on the court. He soon resolutely played Angzi with the ball and singles after the substitution. But Angzi is not so good to play. LeBron James' breakthrough was quickly stopped by Angzi. James could only turn around to take the ball, withstand Angzi, push back, and want to advance. In this game, Angzi's strength was not bad at all, and he didn't let it go. As a result, James couldn't continue to push towards the basket. He could only turn around, fake action to shake Angzi, but still failed. Then, he could only force a shot, throwing a backward jumper against Angzi's defense. With a bang, didn't enter. Channing Frye protected the rebound and the Cavaliers quickly returned to the defense. As early as when LeBron James turned and wanted to shake Angzi away, the Cavaliers' perimeter players knew that the ball might be lost, in order to prevent the 76ers from hitting it again. Wave counterattacked, and Matthew Dellavedova and Dion Waiters soon began to move towards the backcourt. The 76ers, who failed to make a quick counterattack, could only slow down and enter a battle of positions. At this time, many people thought that Angzi, who had the ball to advance to the front court, had to give the basketball to Francisco Garcia, and went to run without the ball by himself, but Angzi knew that there were only 3 things, and the tricks should not be old. With this ball, he waved his hand and started directly from the top of the arc, ready to play singles. Matthew Dellavedova's first 2 goals were not very good. He always let Angzi, who had no ball, find a chance. Now, he can finally defend Angzi, who has the ball. Dravidova seems very serious. Close to Angzi. As a defender from Australia, Matthew Dellavedova's playing style is dirty and he has rich defensive experience. However, at this time, Angzi turned around and directly started back-up singles. Matthew Dellavedova's experience, no matter how rich it is useless. Because Angzi used his pure power to crush Dellavedova, he took the ball and pushed a step sideways, then turned around and started to attack with the face frame. At this time, Angzi's position was near the free throw line. The mid-range position of Angzi is the most threatening position of Angzi. He can make jump shots from this position, or sway the defensive players through fake moves to break into the inside. With this ball, Anzi chose to use a fake move to pass Matthew Dellavedova. He swayed continuously in the middle distance, and after a feint of a hip dribble, Anzi passed Dellavedova in one step. Dravidova chased up, but Anzi then made an emergency stop, stepped back and shot a jumper, and swayed Dravidova completely. This shot, Anzi played very beautifully, completely relying on personal ability, broke Matthew Dellavedova's defense. The last clear sound of wiping the net represents that Anzi has scored 8 points in the second quarter, and the state and feel are extremely hot. 33:27, the score also opened to 6 points, the Cavaliers must take this game seriously. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 620. The Cavaliers quickly made adjustments again and replaced the real giant Kevin Love with a combination of two giants to deal with the impact of Anzi alone. Then, he replaced Kelly Irving in the second half of the second quarter and replaced LeBron James to maintain the Cavaliers' competitiveness on the court. Anzi played from start to finish. In the second half of the second quarter, he scored another 7 points. In the second quarter, he scored 13 points in a single quarter. In addition to the 9 points in the first quarter, Anzi scored 22 points in the half and added 4 points. He had 7 assists in rebounds, the highest in points and assists, and 2 steals and 3 blocks. For the first time, Anzi, who spares no physical effort, showed his dominance over the court. No one can defend his offense, and at the same time, no one can break through his defense. The 76ers also gained an 8-point lead at halftime with 52:44. During the intermission, Shaquille O'Neal gave a surprised look at the 76ers lead in a timely manner. His prediction before the game was completely opposite to the current situation. Before the game, in his prediction, the score was no problem, but the 76ers should be behind and the Cavaliers should be the leading side, but now, the situation is completely opposite. The 76ers are leading and the Cavaliers are behind. Is there any surprise in this game? Anzi wants to defeat the night alone? Shaquille O'Neal has already covered his face. He suddenly felt that he made a wrong decision to predict his end in this game. In the past, this role was Charles Barkley's, but last year, Charles Barkley personally declaring that he is an Anzi fan second only to Kenny Smith in the commentary, so Charles Barkley obviously cannot play the role of a Cavaliers supporter in this game, so this role can only be played by Shaquille O'Neal came to play. Anzi seems to restrain LeBron James. Anzi consistently beat LeBron James last season. If you count the Spurs' 2 seasons, it seems that LeBron James has not won Anzi in major events. Thinking about it this way, Shaquille O'Neal looked bitter, and he always felt that the Cavaliers had lost. But the second half of the game soon began, and Kelly Irving broke out directly. On the first goal of the second half, he put in a 3-pointer against Ismail Smith's defense, helping the Cavaliers to narrow the point difference to 5 points. Then, Anzi, who continued to play, faced Matthew Dellavedova's defense, leaned back and missed a jumper. The Cavaliers grabbed the rebound, but Kelly Owen, fast-moving high-speed change, broke into the basket, and scored 2 more points. The Cavaliers played a wave of 5:0 at the opening of the third quarter, and Irving scored 5 points in a row, reducing the point difference to 3 points. The 3-point gap is already very small. Anzi's next offense is still a post-up singles for the sake of safety, but Anzi added a lot of fake moves, and finally accelerated with a turn and rushed into the inside to make a buckle. Hit by 2 points, the point difference returned to 5 points. But the next round, it was Kelly Owen, who rushed to the front court, ran back to catch the ball, and directly scored a 3-pointer. With a scream, Wachovia Arena exclaimed, and the Knights bench was boiling. At the critical moment, Kelly Owen stepped forward. After scoring 8 points in a row, Kelly Owen single-handedly helped the Cavaliers narrow the difference to 2 points. Then, in the third quarter, Irving continued to explode. After scoring 17 points in a single quarter, the Cavaliers completed the overtake of the 76ers in the third quarter. As early as the Heat period, many people always discussed a rule. LeBron James is invincible when the Heat is downwind. LeBron James is invincible when the Heat is downwind. LeBron James is invincible when the Heat is downwind. LeBron James is invincible. Yes, he can always score and keep his opponents from chasing victory. When going against the wind, Wade will always stand up to help the team complete the comeback. At the time of desperate ball, Ray Allen can always offer magic lore, and at the time of headwind and desperate ball, LeBron James always disappears. Now when it comes to the Cavaliers, the state of the Cavaliers is still the same. LeBron James is invincible with the tailwind, and Kelly Owen is somewhat watched when the headwind. For example, in this game, Kelly Owen stood up in the third quarter and scored 17 points in a single quarter to help the Cavaliers complete overtaken. In the end, at the end of the third quarter, the Cavaliers surpassed the 76ers by 7 points. Shaquille O'Neal became active again, and after 12 minutes of the third quarter, the game was back on track, which was of course Shaquille O'Neal predicted. At the end of the three quarters, the Cavaliers led the 76ers by 7 points. As I predicted before the game, the Cavaliers will take a certain lead, but the lead will not be too large. In the end, they will also rely on a small lead to gain the final victory. Shaquille O'Neal began to mention his pre-match predictions again, because the conditions on the field matched his pre-match predictions, so O'Neal looked very awkward at this time. However, Kenny Smith still holds different opinions. He still believes that the 76ers can complete the comeback. In the final decisive battle, the Cavaliers did their best, and all the big three played, but Brett Brown sent a semi-main lineup on the 76ers side. Point guard Lewis Williams, shooting guard Anxie, small forward Jack Lauder, power forward Channing Frye, and center Norrance Noel are actually the 76ers' death tornado lineup. At critical moments, Cover and Paul, with the absence of Gasol's two main players, Brett Brown took out this lineup again. At the beginning of the fourth quarter, the 76ers had the ball and Anxie opened the singles. Because of the threat of outside three shooters, the Cavaliers did not dare to double-team Anxie easily, so Anxie had more opportunities. The Cavaliers still let Matthew Dellavedova, who had a good effect in defending Anxie in the second quarter, defend Anxie, but Dellavedova was far worse than Anxie. With this goal, Anxie changed direction directly. Then he forced a breakthrough, rushed to the inside, and succeeded in a three-step layup. This was Anxie's 34th point in the game. Kelly Irving scored 17 points in the third quarter, and Anxie also got a 10 points in response. And at the beginning of the fourth quarter, he scored his 34th point in the game. It seems that Anxie's personal score in this game must be more than 40 points. After Anxie scored 2 points, the Cavaliers' attack began. The current Cavaliers still lack outside shooters, and the impact of this shortcoming soon became apparent in this offense. LeBron James rushed, the 76ers doubled, James then divided the ball, outside Matthew Dellavedova received the ball, he is the Cavaliers' outside the only three-point shooter besides Irving and Love. Because of this ball Irving choosing an air cut, Love's three-pointer is still unstable, so LeBron James chose to divide the ball to Matthew Dellavedova. But Dellavedova's three-pointer was actually unstable, and finally with a bang, this open three-pointer was actually an iron. Inside, Norrance Noel grabbed his 10th rebound of the game, and then threw the basketball to an 11, who counterattacked to the front court and scored 2 points with a layup. Then, 2 minutes later, Anxie hit a three-pointer in a counterattack, and the Cavaliers' 7-point lead before the start of the final quarter disappeared. With the last 5 minutes left in the game, the 76ers and Cavaliers were back on the same starting line. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 621. The game was played until the last minute, and the score was still not opened. At this time, the game has reached the most critical moment. Shaquille O'Neal is very nervous. So far, the game is still within the range of his prediction, because the ball is in the hands of the Cavaliers. Strictly speaking, the Cavaliers will still be the leading side. Also nervous is David Blatter. If he loses this game, he will have to bear a lot of pressure after the game. You know, the goal of the establishment of the Cavaliers' Big Three must be the championship, but now even the 76ers, who have lost the key inside core, cannot beat the 76ers. How can the playoffs surpass the 76ers? And the goal is aimed at the finals. Therefore, this game must not be lost. Thinking of this, David Blatter called a timeout and arranged it in detail. The 76ers took advantage of this timeout, removed Channing Frye and Lewis Williams, replaced the better defensive Cole Aldridge and Ismail Smith, strengthened the defense. After a timeout, the Cavaliers used a horn position. LeBron James took the ball. After a double pick and roll from the outside, LeBron James easily broke into the inside and scored 2 points for a layup. At 103:101, the Cavaliers took a 2-point lead. Beautiful. Beautiful tactics, worthy of being a coach who returned from Europe. David Blatter showed his tactical qualities at the last moment. With his beautiful tactics, he defeated the 76ers defense. Take the lead. Shaquille O'Neal shouted excitedly, "This ball is very important." Subsequently, Brett Brown did not hesitate, and called a timeout at the same time. Through this timeout, Brett Brown made another substitution and exchanged for Lewis Williams and Channing Frye. This substitution tactic is exactly what Brett Brown learned from Popovich: critical moments, every round. We must know how to make good use of it. With 39 seconds left in the game, the 76ers have the ball. This ball is very important. An 11, who has scored 41 points in this game, declared his sovereignty over the ball. The last key ball can only be shot by an 11. "Coach, leave the last few to me." Anzi spoke, and Brett Brown nodded. Subsequently, Brett Brown made some specific arrangements. As the head coach who returned from Australia, he studied in the Spurs for several years. Brett Brown is confident that his tactics will not be lost to the Cavaliers. "We played like this: Anzi attacked, wing Lewis pretended to attack, the inside line paid attention to the screen, Channing made a pick and roll for Anzi, and then pulled outside the three-point line, ready to catch the ball at any time, and, the final ball to you, but you don't do it recklessly, pay attention to your teammates on the outside." Brett Brown is still very worried about Anzi's reckless action. After all, Brett Brown is also very concerned about the victory of this game. He wants to use this victory to prove the dominance of the 76ers in the East. If without Pau Gasol, the 76ers still win the Cavaliers with the Big Three, can the Cavaliers be compared with the 76ers? Brett Brown has such an idea that he will try his best to win this game. Otherwise, he won't be too concerned about a regular season victory. After all, he is Pope Vicky's disciple. He doesn't think so much about the regular season. In the 76ers offensive round, they put on an outside multi-shooter lineup to open up space for Anzi's singles. The tactics of this ball are also very simple: Anzi holds the ball in singles, on the other side Lewis Williams holds the ball in the air and feints. This arrangement makes the Cavaliers somewhat confused about the 76ers' ideas. Is it really an Anzi attack? Are the 76ers not afraid that the Cavaliers will stare at Anzi? But when they saw Lewis Williams on the other side, the Cavaliers hesitated again. Although Lou Wei did not play much in this game, the offensive end of Lou Wei's strong ability to grab points is still very threatening, so this after the ball hit the end, the Cavaliers' defense was a little wobbly back and forth. In the end, an 11 accelerated, and after getting rid of Matthew Dellavedova's defense, an emergency stop jumper and a shot. Tristan Thompson's blocked shot was a step slower, and with a scream, the goal was scored. 103:103, the score was tied again. This wave of offense took 7 seconds, with 31 seconds left at the end of the game. Angzi's control time helped the 76ers retain the chance of the last attack. Next, they only need to do their utmost to defend the Cavaliers' last attack and then hit the lure. That's enough. For the Cavaliers, the most critical question is who they should give the last shot. LeBron James strongly demanded the right to the last shot, but David Blatter now more relied on Kelly Irving, who continued to output in the third and fourth quarters, and even Kevin Love, who had a mediocre performance in this game, and made the last shot. The first pick is always ahead of LeBron James. It's not that David Blatter looks down on LeBron James, but this last shot. The 76ers will definitely guard against LeBron James. At this time, let the other two shots better, Earth Stars, to perform the last shot. Obviously is a better choice. However, LeBron James insisted, and David Blatter had no choice but to give the final shot to LeBron James. The reason why LeBron James persists is because of a trash talk from Angzi. After Angzi rushed through Matthew Dellavedova and hit a stop jumper to tie the score again, Angzi passed in front of LeBron James before leaving the game, and whispered, "LeBron, I heard you never don't you shoot at the last moment? I heard that your choice at the last moment is always to pass the ball." This was the biggest black spot for LeBron James when the Cavaliers were 8-7 in November. In the last few games that the Cavaliers lost, the score was anxious at the last moment. LeBron James always chose to pass, which was criticized. Now, Angzi uses this black spot to stimulate LeBron James. If it is the stimulation of other people, LeBron James may not care about it, but if it is the stimulation of Angzi, LeBron James cares very much. Back in Cleveland, LeBron James really didn't want to lose to Angzi anymore. In this way, LeBron James himself was very determined to play this ball. At the same time, on the 76ers side, Angzi told his teammates during the timeout, "LeBron James will leave it to me. You defend other players. Don't give LeBron James any passes. Opportunity." As a result, the game restarted. LeBron James began to hold the ball on the outside. He directly confronted Angzi's defense. With a strong jump, LeBron James rushed inside, but Angzi followed. LeBron James gritted his teeth and sprinted. He knew that in the face of Angzi, any fake moves were useless, so he simply used absolute body and speed to break through Angzi's defense. However, in this game, Angzi's body and speed were not worse than LeBron James, so the two rushed into the interior with one after the other. LeBron James' layup, Angzi reached out to interfere. With a bang, no entry. Angzi turned around and grabbed the rebounds, and the audience cheered. Kenny Smith roared, "A key defense. Angzi has done a good job, he defended this offense." And he called out the last timeout in time. 103:103, in the last 10 seconds, the 76ers have a chance to kill the game. At this time, what many fans think is that during the Heat, LeBron James had a desperate situation with Ray Allen, but when it comes to the Cavaliers, who can LeBron James rely on in desperation? At this time, it was time for Angzi to show his big heart. Pausing, Angzi threw off the towel domineeringly, "Coach, I want the last shot." This time, he wouldn't think about victory or something. It was 103 draws, and even if he missed the lure, there would be extra time. Now, the last shot or not, whether to make or not, has become a war between Angzi and LeBron James. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 622. Shaquille O'Neal's heart got stuck in his throat, and he did not expect that the suspense of the game would last until the last moment of the game. It was a 103 tie. In the last 10 seconds, the 76ers held the ball, and all the advantages have been skewed to the 76ers. During the timeout, Angzi insisted on making the last shot, and Brett Brown had no objection. Then he arranged a tactic: for the last ball, we will have a horn position, and Norrance and Channing will give in a double pick and roll, and you pay attention to using this dual pick and roll cooperation. Angzi naturally nodded. On the Cavaliers' side, LeBron James has been silent all the time. He is unwilling to speak, temporarily still immersed in the entanglement of missing the last goal. LeBron James didn't remember until the whistle of the end of the timeout sounded, and immediately shouted, "Attention everyone, pay attention to the defense of Angzi." The 76ers must have made the last shot by Angzi. This shout was heard by Angzi not far away. Angzi was helpless. LeBron James obviously recognized him, which further increased the difficulty of the Angzi-Lore match. However, in the face of difficulties, an 11 still did not flinch. He stood on the sidelines and stretched out to catch the ball. The Cavaliers began to deploy the defense. The 76ers served from the sideline. Faced with the pressing of the Cavaliers, the basketball could not be delivered for a time. It was not until the last 2 seconds of the 5 seconds of the serve that the ball was given to Jack Lauder on the other side. Angzi ran back and received the basketball. However, Angzi's catch made the Cavaliers even more convinced that Angzi's last shot must be executed by the 76ers. As a result, many people moved towards Angzi to besiege. Time was consumed very quickly, and soon came the last 5 seconds. Angzi pulled the ball in a reverse direction, then turned and changed direction, and rushed in for 2 steps. Then, Angzi encountered double containment by LeBron James and Kevin Love. Pass. Pass. The Cavaliers have leaked countless opportunities on both sides. Brett Brown saw a golden opportunity. At this time, he even hoped that Angzi could pass the ball. But Angzi ignored all the shouts, faced the double interference of LeBron James and Kevin Love, and threw the basketball to the basket with a backward jumper. At that moment, Angzi had only the basket in his eyes, and the countless open spaces beyond the three-point line were all ignored by him. Later, someone looked at the gif of Angzi's basketball shot and made a joke. But in fact, it was the next second after Angzi shot the basketball. Huh! There was a clear sound of wiping the net. OM. With the red light on and the timer beeping, Wachovia Arena fell into endless madness. Goal against the sky. Angzi staged a magic. At the last moment, it was 1-2, and the whole game was 1-3. Angzi played an amazing match. Goal scored. Lore, the 76ers won the game. Angzi won. LeBron James again. Kenny Smith roared frantically. Charles Barkley was also very excited. In contrast, Shaquille O'Neal was a bit tangled. Angzi played a wicked lore, which was quite exciting, but as Angzi's opponent, Shaquille O'Neal could not applaud Angzi's ball, he could only sit there blankly. The 76ers won. After the game, the Turner Sports Trio summed up the game. In the game, Angzi scored 45 points, plus 8 rebounds, 12 assists, 3 steals, and 5 blocks. 45 add 8 add 12 add 3 add 5, plus 1 lore, Angzi dominated the court. Compared with LeBron James' 25 points, 7 rebounds, 10 assists, 1 steal and 3 blocks, from the data alone, Angzi has surrounded LeBron James in all directions. The best performance of the Cavaliers is not LeBron James. The Cavaliers can play with the 76ers until the end of the game, relying on Kelly Irving's explosion in the third quarter. Irving scored 17 points in the third quarter. The game scored 34 points, another 4 rebounds and 6 assists. Without Kelly Irving, the game would have been won. Kevin Love, another giant of the Cavaliers' Big Three, also scored 22 points and 16 rebounds in the game. The Big Three scored 81 points, but they lost to the 76ers in the end. For the 76ers, Angzi's 45 points were the highest in the game. In addition to Angzi, Jack Lauder also ushered in an explosion in this game. He made 11 of 17 shots in the game and scored 28 points in his career. With new highs, plus Norrens Knoll and Channing Frye who scored in double figures, and Lewis Williams who scored close to double figures, the 76ers won the game with Anzi and the overall victory. For the Cavaliers, this battle has further exposed their weaknesses, their ability to attack tough, the lack of final scoring points at the last moment, the lack of substitute strength, and so on. The problems have emerged one after another. Lost to the 76ers without Pau Gasol, which means that the Cavaliers who make up the Big Three are still not the 76ers' opponent. For Shaquille O'Neal's pre-match prediction, Kenny Smith and Charles Barkley naturally made some criticism. On the second day after the game, LeBron James forced Anzi's last ball, and the 1-2 forcibly backward jumper shot against Anzi was reprinted by the major media, and a big title was given the real big heart. LeBron James' performance at the last moments has been criticized again. Although this is a bit of an impression, LeBron James's performance at critical moments this season is indeed poor. He always chooses to pass the ball and does not want himself go for a strong fight. After a hard fight, he was also defended one-on-one by Anzi. Some media even think that LeBron James is already old, even though LeBron James is still under 30 at this time. But every time he played against Anzi, LeBron James was always at a disadvantage, not only losing the data, but also losing the game. This season LeBron James changed a group of younger teammates, but facing Anzi, facing the 76ers who lacked major generals, LeBron James lost again. This situation is a bit desperate, so after the game, according to local media in Cleveland, LeBron James was furious and asked the team to make a deal as soon as possible to get a more suitable teammate. So, as time approaches Christmas, Cavaliers general manager David Griffin gets busy again, and at the same time, the 76ers general manager Sam Hinkie, Kawhi, and Pau Gasol are all busy again. Missing due to injury, the team's lack of soldiers inside, so that Sam Hinkie was very anxious, had to start to seek a trade. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 623. In the final game of the Devils' schedule in December, the 76ers went to Oakland to challenge the current number 1 Warriors in the West. The 76ers have lost 2 games with a record of 20 wins and 2 losses so far, ranking first in the league, while the Warriors have a record of 19 wins and 3 losses, losing 1 more game than the 76ers, which happens to be second in the league. As a result, this direct confrontation between the two teams has become a battle for the first place among the East and West teams, and also a battle for the league's first place. Before this game, the Warriors had a day off. Compared with the 76ers who had 2 battles and traveled long distances in 2 days, they had some physical advantages. Oakland, adjacent to San Francisco, is rumored that the Warriors' new owner has always wanted to move the team to San Francisco across the bridge. However, due to financial and arena constraints, it has not been able to take shape. In fact, even if the Warriors are in Oakland, it's attractive. Most of the fans are also from San Francisco. San Francisco is the largest Chinese settlement in the United States. It has the largest number of Chinese in the United States. In the past, Anzi came to San Francisco to play games and always turned the Oracle Arena into his second home. However, this season has been different. As the Warriors' record progressed by leaps and bounds, the 76ers and Anzi became one of the Warriors' biggest opponents. The influence of American local thinking was very heavy. Therefore, in front of the Warriors, the 76ers and Anzi also became enemies. With the appearance of Anzi, there were boos in the Oracle Arena, only a few cheers in the corner, showing the number of local Chinese. And when an 11 waved at the group of Chinese, the boo in the arena was actually even louder. An 11 smiled and didn't care. James Anderson, who had just returned from injury, smacked his lips. These Golden State fans Are you afraid of you? An 11 shook his head. Don't be kidding, James, this game is not easy to play. Angie saw the fighting spirits Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, as well as the Drummond Green who made great progress this season. Angie walked over, greeted Curry and the others, and chatted a few words. Stephen, you played well this year, a big dark horse. Angie called the Warriors a big dark horse. The implication is obvious. Angie does not recognize the Warriors as a strong team. Stephen Curry didn't argue with an 11 either. He gritted his braces and looked like a bad boy. He whimpered and said, "Don't play word games with me, An." At this moment, Drummond Green came over from the other side. Drummond Green was so dark that when he grinned and smiled, he showed white teeth. It was funny. Angie thought, Delamond Grin can even advertise for black toothpaste. Drummond Green's trash-talking ability is much better than Stephen Curry. As soon as he saw Angie, he replied, "An, we will press you hard against the floor of the Oracle Arena for this game." Angie waved his hand and ignored the Warriors players. However, from the words of Stephen Curry and Drummond Green, he could see that the Warriors were vigorous and positive. The starting players of both sides exchanged greetings, and they all got their positions on the court. The Warriors' success this season depends on their offensive and defensive starting lineup: starting point guard Stephen Curry, shooting guard Klay Thompson, small forward Harrison Barnes, power forward Drummond Green and center Andrew Bogut. Except for center Bogut, the other four players can shoot from beyond the three-point line. Except for Stephen Curry, the other four players have a certain one-on-one single defense ability and a certain degree of assistance. That's it. An excellent offensive and defensive lineup helped the Warriors achieve an outstanding record of 19 wins and 3 losses. For the 76ers, Kawhi and Pau Gasol have not yet returned. This game Brett Brown gave the team a regular starting lineup: starting point guard Ismail Smith, shooting guard Angie, small forward Jack Lauder, power forward Channing Frye and center Nerlens Noel. Starting point guard with Ismail Smith, naturally considered the defense against Stephen Curry. In the Warriors' offense, Curry's offensive with the ball is still very important. It is obviously the safest way to send Ismail Smith to guard all the time. At the beginning of the game, Nerlens Noel and Andrew Bogut jumped the ball, but Andrew Bogut, who had evolved into a floor flow inside line, first dialed back the basketball and grabbed the right to the opening first. Angie retreated quickly and faced Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson also ushered in an explosion this season. The scoring data of 22.7 points per game so far means Klay Thompson is advancing on the road of all-star shooting guards. This also means that Angie's task in this game is to prevent death. Klay Thompson is the new star in the second position. Klay Thompson's offensive ability with the ball is not strong, he is better at throwing the ball without the ball, and the Warriors' Drummond Green and Stephen Curry are excellent passers, which gives Klay Thompson's good living space, of course, also greatly increase the defensive pressure on Angie in this game. The Warriors played a simple outside pick and roll tactic at the beginning of the game. After the pick and roll was opened, the ball was handed over to Curry. Curry took a step in, and directly stopped the jumper and shot, with a bang, and went out of the basket. Nerlens Noel steadily protected the rebound, and then passed the basketball to Angie. And then, what Angie has to face is the young and powerful wing of the Warriors. Klay Thompson and Harrison Barnes are both above standard single defense players. Angie also knows that Andre is still sitting on the Warriors bench. Iguodala, this game he is destined to be beaten by the Warriors on the offensive end. In the first offense, Klay Thompson defended Angie. He was close to Angie and didn't give Angie too much room for display. Angie chose to fight with his back, he turned around and pushed forward 2 steps, and then suddenly turned over and shot a jumper. Klay Thompson's defense is in place, and Angie hasn't found a touch in the opening game, and the ball is also an iron. The two teams hit the iron one after another, and the Warriors who grabbed the rebound started their offense again. At this time, the Warriors coach Steve Kerr on the sidelines frowned. An 11 did not score his first goal, but he could tell that Klay Thompson was struggling to defend Angzi and Angzi's backup singles. Very strong, Steve Kerr even felt that Angzi's post-up singles was better than his number 23 teammate. Steve Kerr also knows that there are still many weapons in Angzi's offensive arsenal. Perhaps the most rare game for the Warriors is to prevent Angzi from being killed. The Warriors' offense, Drummond Green's outside line is another high-quality screen, or Stephen Curry. He moved a step laterally to accelerate the breakthrough of Ismail Smith's defense. This time, Stephen Curry's breakthrough was very firm. After rushing to the inside, he avoided Noren's Noel's supplementary block and threw the basketball into the hoop. After the goal was scored, the Warriors scored the first point of the game, and the Oracle Arena was boiling. And then Noren's Noel reluctantly patted his hand, turned around to pick up the ball, and served in the back court. Ismail Smith controlled the ball to the front court and then passed the basketball to Angzi. Angzi did not hesitate and started another wave of singles. He took a three-thread pose from outside the three-point line, and then extended a probing step. After Klay Thompson shook his defensive center of gravity, Angzi accelerated and rushed toward the inside. At this time, Harrison Barnes on the other side quickly assisted in defense. Angzi didn't even look at Harrison Barnes, so he rushed for another step, and then directly passed the ball without looking at people, and threw the basketball to Jack Lauder, who was already open in front of him. Jack Lauder leaped slightly and shot the basketball from beyond the three-point line. Then, the white net flower turned over made all the Warriors fans on the scene open their mouths and the ball was scored. 3 points. Jack Lauder has been in a very hot state recently. An 11 assisted in the opening of this game, helping him to get 3 points straight. The excellent state of the two teams also made a good start for this game. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletnji. Chapter 624. The game played for another 2 minutes, and the Warriors scored 2 3-pointers and scored 6 points in a row. Instead, the 76ers failed to score in the next few offenses, so the opening Warriors played the 76ers 8-3. Brett Brown on the coach's bench couldn't stand it anymore. He walked to the sidelines and yelled a few words. Angzi gave Brett Brown an okay gesture, and then rushed to the front court with the ball, facing Klay Thompson's defense with the ball. In the previous few shots, Angzi chose to pass the ball, but apart from Jack Lauder making a three-pointer, both Ismail Smith and Channing Frye's outside shots ended in iron, so this Chu Angzi decided to do it himself. After observing the Warriors' defense, he directly asked for a pick-and-roll screen and a single block. An 11 rushed into the post, passed Klay Thompson and made a layup. Angzi's goal resolved the 76 ERS scoring shortage. The Chinese fan team on the sidelines and the 76 ERS bench all stood up and cheered, especially on the 76 ERS bench. A group of substitute players enthusiastically waved their towels and celebrated Angzi. The goal. But then, after another wave of successful offenses by the Warriors, Angzi began to pass again. He gave Channing Frye another open shot, but Channing Frye still missed the shot. Angzi has nothing to do. The Warriors know the 76ers very well. They always double-team Angzi at the first time, so Angzi has to choose to pass the ball. But the result of the pass was that Channing Frye, who was in poor condition in the game, missed an open shot, and Ismail Smith, who was at the point guard, had no shooting ability. Therefore, Angzi's pass could only be useless. The Warriors counterattacked and scored 2 more points. The Warriors played the 76ers 12-5 in the opening game, showing their excellent state. The rapid offensive and defensive speed, precise shooting, and fiery touch all made the 76ers feel the game difficult. The 7-point lag in the opening also made Angzi serious. As many people said, Angzi is now a kaleidoscope on the offensive end. He has a lot of weapons on the offensive end, and he may need a large arsenal to fit them. In every game, he took out 1 or 2 weapons at the right time, shot a wave, and took away the game. In many cases, only part of the weapons in his arsenal could be used, and most of them were out of the sun all day long. The simplest offensive methods such as back jumpers, emergency stop jumpers and retreat jumpers are the most commonly used by Angzi. Like throwing shots, hook shots, and three-pointers, Angzi uses less. An 11 would only pull out these weapons when needed, such as now. Angzi thought about the warrior's defense against him, and an idea flooded into his mind. After the game restarted, Angzi's plan officially began. Klay Thompson is still very excited to let Angzi collapse on the offensive end one after another. Although he often uses the help of his teammates, the current Angzi can no longer be blocked by one person, right? They can limit Angzi's personal offense by double teaming, which is already very good. Klay Thompson's pride was seen by Angzi. He posted Angzi, not planning to give Angzi too much room for activity. But at this moment, Angzi suddenly leaned on Klay Thompson with his back, and Klay Thompson hurriedly called for Drummond Green's flanking cooperation. The Warriors who had studied Angzi's offense before the game knew very well that Angzi's conventional weapons on the offensive end, it's the back, the turn and back jumper after the back, the breakthrough after the back, the emergency stop jumper or the step back jumper, so Klay Thompson knows exactly how threatening Angzi is after his back. But when Klay Thompson was eager to call for help from his teammates, Angzi suddenly turned around again, and directly against Klay Thompson, came a horseback archery. Klay Thompson subconsciously stretched out his hand to interfere, and then hit an 11's arm with a snap. The hit was so heavy that Angzi's basketballs flew out, so the referee's whistle rang in a timely manner, and the referee pointed directly at Klay Thompson, which was an undoubted thug foul. Klay Thompson was stunned. He did not expect that Angzi would use his position error to directly turn around and commit a foul. From this time on, Angzi gradually took out other weapons in his arsenal. For the first ball, he turned around to commit a foul after taking the ball with his back. At 12:7, Angzi's 2 free throws helped the 76ers close the point difference. The game continued. The Warriors' offense. Stephen Curry took possession of the ball to the front court, another wave of rapid offense. Andrew Bogut responded in a high position, and then a high-quality hand-in-hand cooperation. Stephen Curry broke into the inside and made a jump shot. Swish, the ball is in. At 14:7, the points difference reopened to 7 points. An 11 is not impatient or impatient. From the back court to the front court, Angzi has also figured out how to play this ball. It is still an uncommon weapon in his arsenal. He directly greeted Channing Frye's screen, and after a poor quality screen, Angzi rushed into the inside, and immediately encountered Drummond Green and Klay Thompson's back and forth attack. Angzi did not panic, nor was he eager to score the ball. He took a step towards the inside and directly touched Drummond Green. He immediately leaned against Drummond Green, and the outside hand directly moved. The basketball was pulled up, and a hook shot that went around the half of the body was shot directly. The ball was specifically shot high, and it escaped Drummond Green's best effort to block the block, wiped the board, and then with a scream, got into the basket. The Chinese fans on the scene exploded all at once. They cheered wildly, and the Warriors fans in the Oracle Arena were also shocked. Angzi's second goal was a high scratching hook shot from the back of the breakthrough. Going again, Angzi scored 2 more points. His consecutive singles helped the 76ers maintain the score. In the Warriors' offense, Stephen Curry passed the ball to Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson dribbled the ball and soon saw the empty cut Drummond Green. He immediately passed the ball, but the next moment, Drummond Green's layup was directly knocked to the ground by Lawrence Knoll on the side. Channing Frye, who was on the side with quick eyes and quick hands, grabbed the basketball directly, followed by a long pass, which was passed to the front court. Fast forward, Angzi received the pass. He watched the Warriors' defense that was too late to catch up. He directly faced Klay Thompson and shot a chasing three-pointer. Angzi's third offense, chasing 3 points. Come in. At 14-12, the point difference was suddenly reduced to 2 points. Angzi also scored 7 points in a row, and the state was so hot as to explode. And then, an 11 rushed Klay Thompson again, taking advantage of Drummond Green's pinch, rushed into the inside, and made a heavy one-handed buckle. There was a loud noise. Get another 2 points. Even the difference. There was a burst of violent cheers at the scene and then boos all over the sky. Coupled with Angzi's subsequent drifting goal from outside, Angzi has already scored 11 points in a row. He directly turned the score into 16-14, helping the 76ers to overtake the score. Angzi also successfully stopped the Warriors. If this were the 76ers home court, there must have been a lot of cheers at the scene, but because it was the Warriors' home stadium, Oracle Arena, there was only a boo left on the scene, and it was the 76ers who celebrated with the boos. Excited group of players. As the game enters the timeout, Steve Kerr needs to make some adjustments. At this time, Kenny Smith in the commentary was extremely excited, and 11 showed his dominance on the offensive end. In the past, the Angzi we remembered was the Angzi who took the ball with his back and made all kinds of dry draws and jumpers. But just now in the past few rounds, we saw Angzi who made fouls, Angzi who made inside hooks, and Angzi who drifted shots. Such Angzi is the real offensive kaleidoscope. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 625. Stephen, Klay, we now need the team to play more fierce firepower. Don't suppress yourself anymore, go attacking as much as you want. Try it as much as you want. Steve Kerr also meant a little chicken soup, but compared to normal the chicken soup coach, Steve Kerr still has something in his stomach. At least now the Warriors' offense, without his tactics and his chicken soup, still can't be played. Soon, the timeout was over. Stephen Curry gritted his braces and glanced at Angzi, who scored 11 points in a row and killed the red eye. At this moment, Stephen Curry is also full of fighting spirit. The Warriors of the season have a bit of meaning from the Kings of the year. It is not that the Warriors' tactics are like the gorgeous Kings of Princeton back then, but the Warriors' playing style is very similar. One word runs through the whole thing: wave. The Warrior is not the strongest warrior when fighting calmly. On the contrary, the warrior who flies in waves is the real strongest warrior. Because of the more waves, several young players of the Warriors can play their personalities. So, after a wave of suspended adjustments, the Warriors began to release themselves and began to wave. Stephen Curry took possession of the ball to the front court. Drummond Green came over for a pick-and-roll screen, and Curry moved a step, dodged the defense, and immediately jumped up, abruptly with a three-pointer. As soon as the ball was shot, the scene was immediately exclaimed. Because the shot was too sloppy, it looked like it was going to strike an iron. Sure enough, just after the pause, Curry's hands were not hot yet, and forcing a three-pointer like this, the hit rate would definitely not be too high. With only a bang, the ball hit iron. The basketball bounced high, and Andrew Bogut reacted quickly, withstood Noren's knoll and grabbed the rebound. Turning around and throwing the basketball directly to the outside line, Curry had already turned around and was ready to return to defense. When he turned around, when he received the basketball, he was already a step away from the three-point line. In this position, Stephen Curry unexpectedly made another three-pointer without any adjustment. This time it was a large three-pointer one step away from the three-point line. The fans on the sidelines opened their mouths. This three-pointer was too far, and one step away from the three-point line, Stephen Curry actually took the shot without any scruples. Judging from the trajectory of the basketball flight, it is really possible to score. If Director John was asked to explain the ball, at the moment when the three-pointer was shot, he would definitely shout, "Hey, you dare to shoot." Then, before the goal was scored, he shouted again, "Hey, there really is." The next second, a scream. A crisp sound of wiping the net sounded, and the three-pointer got into the basket with precision. Wow! A big three-pointer. Stephen Curry fired. Kenny Smith unbiasedly cheered Stephen Curry's three-pointer. This season, the Warriors are also one of the hottest teams in the NBA. Kenny Smith has watched many Warriors games and has a certain understanding of Stephen Curry's playing style. When he saw Stephen Curry hit this large three-pointer, Kenny Smith knew that this game was going to be exciting. Large three-pointer. Stephen Curry is about to explode. The real Stephen Curry is the one who made the three-pointer. Now, we can announce that the real Stephen Curry is here. The game is about to become exciting. On the court, Stephen Curry chewed on his braces and shook his head in celebration. Anzi shook his head and laughed. He squinted his eyes. Many people may not be clear about it. On 3 points alone, Anzi is not defeated by Stephen Curry, and even slightly stronger. Anzi slowly controlled the ball from the backcourt, and countless fans on the sidelines were still in the excitement of Stephen Curry making a long three-pointer. They were all standing, cheering for Stephen Curry. At this time, Anzi's slow control of the ball was ignored by these Warriors fans on the sidelines. The Warriors didn't care much either. Klay Thompson, who defended Anzi, also gave a high five with Stephen Curry, who returned to the defense. Klay Thompson turned his attention only when Anzi had the ball 3 steps away from the three-point line. Anzi, an 11, who had the ball, took another step, 2 steps away from the three-point line, and he stopped suddenly. Klay Thompson was stunned. He hadn't reacted yet. In the next second, he saw an 11 suddenly pull up and shot directly. How can it be? No way. Everyone was stunned. No one could have imagined that Anzi would actually make a direct shot. This is 2 steps away from the three-point line. If Stephen Curry's three-pointer is a large three-pointer, then Anzi's three-pointer is an extra large three-pointer. Klay Thompson was completely unable to react. After all, he shot a three-pointer 2 steps away from the three-point line. This was the first time he saw him. Even Stephen Curry, who was very arrogant outside the three-point line, was only a few steps away. This time, he shot a three-pointer from a big step beyond the three-point line. Even Stephen Curry hadn't shot at such a far position. Surely you won't enter such a long distance. This is the unanimous idea of countless Warriors players and Warriors fans. But the next second, the crisp sound of wiping the net suddenly sounded, and the entire Oracle Arena was shocked. Go in. It's actually in. Kenny Smith spent a long time in the dark, and Charles Barkley on the side kept reminding him, "Hey, buddy, it's not necessary, right? I remember Anzi made such an extra-large three-pointer in the playoffs last year." Kenny Smith murmured, "No, this is different, Charles. Do you know what contrast is?" "What?" "When Stephen Curry hits a large three-pointer 1 step away from the three-point line and Oracle Arena is cheering wildly, you will think that Stephen Curry is too strong. But the next round, Anzi still when it took a farther extra-large three-pointer, that kind of shock." Charles Barkley quickly understood that this was a shock after comparison. Just as the expressions and reactions of the Warriors fans in the Oracle Arena at this time, everyone was shocked. As Anzi celebrated on the court, Stephen Curry squeezed his fist, and in the next round, the Warriors attacked. Stephen Curry was a side shift after a screen and a direct three-pointer shot. Swish, come in again. After 2 consecutive three-pointers, Stephen Curry broke out. Here Stephen Curry just scored a goal. Anzi controlled the ball to the front court. This time Klay Thompson was on guard, but Anxi still took a violent step, completely ignoring Klay Thompson's defense. It's another three-pointer. Anxi's face showed his determination, and this three-pointer was also very determined. Huh. There is a clear sound of wiping the net, and then 3 points. The fans at the scene were crazy, and the three-pointer between Anxi and Stephen Curry started suddenly. The next moment, Anxi continued to shoot three-pointers. This season, Anxi made very few three-pointers. This game was the first time he had made so many three-pointers. Everyone was shocked inexplicably. This season, everyone is talking about how strong the Warriors' three-pointers are, and how strong are Stephen Curry's three-pointers. For Anxi, the more impression is that Anxi is a kaleidoscope of offensive end, and he has a variety of offensive methods. No one thought that Anxi's three-pointers would be so strong. He actually had a three-pointer with Stephen Curry, and even had the upper hand even if he didn't lose the wind. Strong. Too strong. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 626. At the end of the first quarter, the 76ers scored 44 points in a single quarter under Anxi's unexpected outbreak. Among them, Anxi scored 25 points alone, which is worthy of the title of King of the Single Quarter. Stephen Curry didn't make too much, with 5 three-pointers in a single quarter, helping him score a high score of 17 points. In the end, the 76ers directly led the Warriors by 10 points with 44-34 in the first quarter. By the beginning of the second quarter, the advantage of the Warriors' core presence began to appear. They adopted the method of will warfare and continuously used more efficient offenses to reduce the team's backwardness in the first quarter. And the 76ers are naturally supported by Anxi alone. Anxi is still playing singles. The Warriors have changed other players to defend him. Now it is Andre Iguodala and Andre on the Warriors bench who are staring at Anxi. Iguodala is also a well-known single defense player. Facing the Warriors, a group of powerful wing players, Anxi is still under great pressure. However, even so, Anxi played very well. In this game, he seemed to be completely motivated by fighting spirit. Many of the weapons in the arsenal that had not been used for a long time were taken out one by one. Anxi continuously used different offensive methods to play with each defensive player who defended himself. In this way, Anxi scored another 16 points in the second quarter, but the Warriors narrowed the lagging point difference to 3 points before halftime, which was a negligible point difference. The 76ers Death Tornado lineup, under the Warriors' little quick spirit play, has no advantage. This is why Anxi needs to play singles one after another. Even so, the Warriors still take the initiative on the court. Anxi scored 41 points at halftime. Someone exclaimed, "If Anxi's firepower can continue, Kobe Bryant's 81 points will be dangerous." After all, he scored 41 points in the first half and 40 points in the second half. The Warriors also noticed this. Steve Kerr felt that their defense of Anxi was too bad. In this regard, they need to improve. For the victory of this game, Steve Kerr made another attempt. He called Drummond Green. "Drummond, you will defend Anxi in the second half. Are you confident of preventing him from killing him?" Drummond Green stood up at this time, as if he was finally waiting for something, and patted his chest. "Coach, don't worry, I will prevent Anxi from being killed, so take a look." Steve Kerr smiled and looked at Drummond Green's guarantee. At this time, the game entered December. With his excellent record at the beginning of the game, Steve Kerr won the trust of the players, especially the season. Drummond Green, who came to erupt, and Steve Kerr, who helped Green erupt, were already like a teacher of Green. But what many people don't know is that at the beginning of the season, the Warriors internally resisted Steve Kerr's appointment. The former head coach Mark Jackson led the team to complete the playoff breakthrough. His popularity is so high that core players like Stephen Curry are reluctant to see Mark Jackson leave, even after the team changes coaches. Openly question the team management's choice. For Steve Kerr, from the beginning of joining the team, he has to face the doubts of the team's core players, and the only way to resolve these doubts is to win. The 19 wins and 3 losses at the beginning of the game were not enough. Steve Kerr took this victory. First in the league, he wants it, and he wants the victory over the defending champion. Not only that, but Steve Kerr wants to ensure the final victory as much as possible, so he decided to let his proud disciple Delo Mondglin defended Angzi from the beginning of the second half and tried to prevent Angzi from being killed. Once Angzi was prevented from death, there was no much suspense in this game. For Drummond Green, Steve Kerr has high confidence. Unlike Andre Iguodala and Klay Thompson, facing Angzi, Drummond Green faced Angzi in strength. There will not be too many disadvantages. More importantly, Drummond Green is a master of trash talking. He will use his trash talking to disturb Angzi. Therefore, Steve Kerr thinks that as long as Drummond Green does a good job of predicting the defensive end, and this adjustment on the defensive end can be successful. Drummond Green is indeed a master of trash talk. From the beginning of the second half of the game, he was chattering in Angzi's ears. Angzi's first goal in the opening game was a post-back single. Angzi kept pushing forward with his back. Drummond Green tried his best to resist Angzi behind him, and then kept saying, "Hey, buddy, are you in love with me? Are you suffering? Why do you keep pushing me with your ass? Ah, you must be suffering, it's disgusting." An 11 didn't care about him, and after 2 steps, an 11 turned over and shot a jumper. But perhaps because the game had just started, an 11's hands were still relatively cold, and the ball actually didn't score and bounced out. The goal was not scored, an 11 didn't care, and turned back to defense. Drummond Green clapped his palms. Obviously, he was very excited. He defended the first ball. In a wave of offense by the Warriors, Klay Thompson's mid-range shot also hit iron, Noren's Noel grabbed the rebound, and the Warriors continued to fall behind by 3 points. And when the 76ers offense started again, Angzi once again turned his back to Drummond Green and began to fight with his back. Drummond Green started his mouth performance again. "Ah, no, you suffer, are you in love with me? No, it's disgusting." Angzi didn't say a word, stiffened his back, then turned around and jumped up. He is very annoying now. He wants to rip Drummond Green's mouth, but Angzi knows that he can't do this. If he does, the referee will give Angzi a T, or even 2 TS, and directly punish Angzi. Therefore, there is only one way to make Drummond Green shut up, and that is to use continuous goals to force Drummond Green to shut up. Therefore, Angzi used a little change in this ball. When he turned and jumped up, he directly bent his knees and used a horse riding and archery movement to increase his time in the air. After adjusting the air, he slowly threw the basketball to the basket. After precise guidance, with a scream, the basketball got into the hoop. The goal is scored. Angzi scored the first point in the third quarter, so the point difference was pulled to 5 points. After scoring the goal, Angzi glanced at Drummond Green and replied unceremoniously, "Are you discriminating against homosexuals? Be careful, I inform you of Adam Silver." Adam Silver is the president of the league that is very supportive of homosexuality. Adam Silver expressed public support for the appearance of referee Bill Kennedy, and Adam Silver even opposed the anti-homosexuality bill introduced by North Carolina from the perspective of the NBA. Obviously, if Drummond Green openly opposes homosexuality and even discriminates against homosexuality, Adam Silver will not be stingy with various suspensions and dollar penalties. Drummond Green didn't speak anymore, he was quiet for a while, made a pick and roll for Stephen Curry on the offensive end, and after returning to the defensive end to face Angzi, he became active again. "Hey, buddy, are you going to start back singles from here?" This is from outside the three-point line. Are you going to shoot backwards from outside the three-point line? Drummond Green seems to have forgotten to go. What happened in one round? He once again stood up to Angzi, spitting continuously in his mouth. An 11 ignored him, his body turned counterclockwise and turned into a face-up attack. Sure enough, you see, I was right, you really didn't dare to jump back from beyond the three-point line. Drummond Green smiled triumphantly, as if he had figured out Angzi's routine. But at this time, Angzi suddenly retreated one step, and then one backward. Go straight. Drummond Green's pupils began to dilate. He just said a few jokes. He did not expect that Angzi would directly use a throwback jumper from outside the three-point line, directly back. Drummond Green rushed to Angzi in horror. This goal could not be scored anyway. If it does, then his is equivalent to humiliating himself. But it's too late. Drummond Green had no idea that Angzi would choose to make a fallback jumper outside the three-point line, so he was not prepared to defend Angzi's fallback jumper. The crisp wiping color was like a hammer, and it hammered Drummond Green's heart fiercely. The goal is scored. 3 points. Angzi scored a three-pointer and returned the difference to 5 points. After scoring this goal, an 11 said nothing, just glanced at Drummond Green, and then began to retreat. Drummond Green now feels uncomfortable. An 11 actually responded to him with a throwback jumper from beyond the three-point line. That's not the case. After the goal, an 11 didn't say a word. This was in Drummond. For Green, the silent Angzi is more uncomfortable than the talking Angzi. After all, this is silent humiliation. After a wave of offense by the Warriors, Angzi's singles continued. Drummond Green was much quieter, and the confrontation between the two was left with heavy breathing. But when an 11 ended the attack with a deep inside throw, it was replaced by an 11 using trash talking to humiliate Drummond Green. How is my throw? Pretty, isn't it? You are 5 points behind again. Drummond Green squeezed his fist. He is a very emotional player. At this time, he seemed to be irritated by Angzi. Turning the offense, Drummond Green made a three-pointer against Angzi's defense and missed. Then, Norrance Knoll passed the basketball to Angzi, and Angzi once again faced Drummond Green. He thought about it for a moment. Then, it was a fake action of changing the direction of the crotch dribble. A turnaround and a breakthrough directly past Drummond Green. Green is very tenacious, he catches up again. In terms of physical fitness, he is no worse than Angzi without any bonus. So when the two rushed into the penalty area one after another, the Warriors screamed from the sidelines, and many people were expecting Drummond Green to guard against Angzi's attack. But soon, they were disappointed. Angzi leaped high and shot directly behind Drummond Green on the inside. It was hook shot again. In this game, Angzi's uncommon weapons have become more commonly used. This makes people hard to defend. Many people exclaimed that this is the real Angzi in the strongest state. With a scream, an 11 hooked into the basketball. And then, Angzi glanced at Drummond Green with disdain. Huh? Why are you blocking me? Are you defending me? This kind of disdain made Drummond Green's anger even worse, and he began to do his best to suppress this anger. While the game continued, Angzi continued to play singles, scored consecutive goals, and used trash to provoke Drummond Green. Drummond Green began to become angry. In the next offense, Angzi and Cole Aldridge came to a pick-and-roll cooperation, and then Angzi rushed into the interior. At this time, the game has reached the final stage of the third quarter. The difference between the two teams is 6 points, and the 76ers lead. The Warriors changed other players to defend Angzi because Drummond Green's defensive effect was too poor. But this adjustment made Drummond Green feel unbalanced even more. As a result, with this ball, after Angzi accelerated past Andre Iguodala, who was defending him, and rushed into the interior, Drummond Green seized the opportunity and rushed completely indiscriminately between the sparks and flints. "Come here and jump up to cover Angzi." At the same time as he jumped up, the movements on his legs also appeared, a raised leg, directly towards Angzi's crotch. At this time, Angzi, who has always been very tough before, does not matter whether he can score or not. Compared with his crotch baby, the gains and losses of 1 ball and 2 are not so important. An 11 avoided, but was still swept by Drummond Green's legs to a little bend, and the whole person lost the center of gravity in the air and fell to the floor. The Oracle Arena suddenly exploded. No one would have thought that Drummond Green would make such an insidious move, kicking in defense. This is a useless action. Jack Lauder on the court reacted. He was directly angry, waving his fist and rushing towards Drummond Green. Seeing that a fight was about to begin, the referee was also anxious at this time and squeezed directly up, blocking in front of Jack Lauder, blowing the whistle hastily, as if blocking the furious Jack Lauder. But when the referee was preparing to deal with the conflict, an 11 stood up from the floor. Except for Angzi's teammates, everyone else followed the referee, not Angzi. So, just as Angzi slammed a punch from behind Drummond Green, only James Anderson, who helped Angzi, exclaimed, and then everyone could only hear Drummond Green's shout out. A one-sided fight broke out. Drummond Green looks very strong, but when it comes to fighting, he is not Angzi's opponent at all. Angzi has practiced boxing for a period of time. In terms of physical fitness, reaction, etc., he can even explode Drummond Green. So, this sudden fight was actually Angzi's unilateral beating of Drummond Green. Of course Drummond Green fought back, but it was useless to fight back. An 11 still suppressed him with absolute strength. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 627. When Angzi threw a fist at Drummond Green, the entire Oracle Arena was in a mess. Warriors fans at the scene booed, whistled, and cursed, and several radical fans tried to rush to the court. Fortunately, the security at the scene was good enough to stop these crazy fans. But the conflict on the court did not stop. Drummond Green began to fight back. He hit an 11's chest with an uppercut with a backhand, and an 11 snorted. Angzi has punched Drummond Green 3 or 4 times in a row. After being returned a punch by Drummond Green, his heart was even more angry. The guilt that first provoked a fight was also wiped out, and he straightened his right hand. He squeezed his fist and swept away at Drummond Green. Drummond Green's face began to be distorted to the extent visible to the naked eye, and then a line of blood came out of his nose, and it was red. Not far away, the 76ers and other Warriors players also started. They pushed each other, and the scene was extremely chaotic. At this time, several commentators in the commentary booth were also excited. This is a rare scene. The NBA, which is committed to civilized games, has never allowed such fighting scenes to appear on the NBA court. Once someone does it, the NBA immediately it will be warned of heavy penalties. Therefore, since the 21st century, there have only been fights between the Palace of Auburn Hills and the 2006 Nuggets Madison Square Garden Arena. When such a strange fight took place, the neutral fans on the scene and in front of the TV were extremely excited. The fans who watched the NBA for several years shouted wonderfully, and finally saw the excitement. On the field, the referee slowed down a few steps, and was late when Drummond Green saw red. With the help of other players and on-site staff, they opened Angzi and Drummond Green first. As a result, the two boxing competitions were also divided. Angzi was hit by Drummond Green, but he beat Drummond Green 4 or 5 punches, and he was bleeding. Therefore, the final result is Angzi's victory. But the boxing competition is over, and soon it's time to settle. On the 76ers side, Angzi first started, Jack Lauder and Norrance Knoll followed afterwards. On the Warriors' side, the protagonist Drummond Green was naturally in it. In addition to him, there were Andrew Bogut and Ender Iguodala also joined. As a result, the referee kept blowing their whistle, blowing technical fouls one by one. Anzi, Jack Lauder, Norrance Knoll, Drummond Green, Andrew Bogut and Andre Iguodala on the Warriors' side. All were expelled from the field. Anzi quickly walked in the players' channel. The team's press officer Matt Lewis followed Anzi and guarded Anzi. The fans on both sides kept swearing. Fortunately, under the control of the on-site security personnel, the fans on the sidelines did not. There is a radical situation. Anzi exited the field safely. At this time, he also calmed down. The expulsion is the first time since Anzi joined the NBA because of non-competitive factors. Anzi left early due to non-competitive factors, but Anzi does not regret that moment when he swung his fist at Drummond Green, facing the useless kicking action. Anzi believes this cannot be tolerated, and it is necessary to let the invalids know what price they need to pay after making such an action. Anzi is no longer an ordinary NBA player. He is now a star player and a superstar player in the NBA. Even to put it mildly, Anzi is now the #1 player in the NBA. Therefore, in many cases, Anzi has to face the various big moves of the opposing defensive players, such as Blake Griffin, who entered the league at the beginning of the year, and various flying dunks, but in recent years, Blake Griffin's flying the deductions are also much less, because every time a deduction is made, Blake Griffin is deducted at the risk of being maliciously fouled by his opponent. Although Anzi doesn't have any dunks, most of them are mid-range singles, but it is not ruled out that opponents will use malicious moves to deal with themselves. And after punching Drummond Green this time, few players would dare to move Anzi in the future. But now, what Anzi needs to worry about is the suspension after this game. As far as Anzi knows, after Carmelo Anthony fought in 2006, the league imposed a 15-game ban on him. As the league's iconic star, Anzi throws his fist to face each other this time. It is indispensable to suspend the game. If you add Pau Gasol and Kawhi's injuries, Anzi can hardly imagine that in the next month or so, 76 how far will one's record fall? But there is no other way. It has already happened and everything is a foregone conclusion. In this vicious event with the Warriors, the 76ers and the Warriors' Liang Zi also ended. After Anzi and the others left the field, the game on the field was very angry. The referee blew the whistle again and again. After a fight, the referee was blown to pieces by the referee. However, because the 76ers lost the team's main strength, Anzi, the final result of the game was that the Warriors relied on the efforts of Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson to take the lead in the second half with a wave of points, and finally won the game. The battle between the East and the West became a farce. The Warriors won the game, but because of Drummond Green's useless actions, they won the game very shamelessly. Of course, if you win, you win. The 76ers and the Warriors have a consistent record of 20 wins and 3 losses, but the Warriors are ranked first in the league by virtue of their mutual record. In other words, the Warriors won the battle for the first battle in the league. The Warriors won the league's first place, but after the game, disturbances came one after another. On the day the game ended, the league's senior leaders gathered in an emergency, held a meeting, and asked the staff to call the two teams and made a severe criticism. The president of the league, Adam Silver, is very concerned about the brawl. He is very angry. After all, this brawl is the first such vicious incident in Adam Silver's term. Adam Silver has been committed to the development of a civilized NBA. Obviously, he was going to take a heavy hand in this fight. If the NBA wants to achieve greater success overseas, it is inevitable to build a civilized league. It's a pity that most players in the league don't understand. Many of the players who join the league are born on the streets. Fighting is commonplace. The basketball game is so advocating physical confrontation. It is not difficult to understand that it is not difficult for both sides to fight with each other. The only thing that surprised and angry Adam Silver is that the 76ers and the Warriors, the two most representative teams of the league, will actually fight in the game, and the good husband in people's minds, and 11, will actually do it first. This is a very serious matter. Fans of both teams are spread all over the world. Angzi has gradually grown into the league's leading star. The impact of this fight is unprecedented. The idols fight on the field. For children, this is a big loss of image, not to mention that many parents are reluctant to see children learn from idols. Therefore, Adam Silver wants to severely punish the players involved in this fight. But on the other hand, Adam Silver has to consider the impact of Angzi's suspension. After all, if the league bans Angzi for too long, Angzi is likely to withdraw from the competition for awards in the regular season. The 76ers' record is also very good. It may plummet. Don't underestimate the suspension of more than a dozen games. Once Angzi misses these more than a dozen games, Wang Angzi will not be eligible to participate in the regular season data, and Angzi will also miss the competition for regular season MVP, boy and other awards. In short, great influence. Adam Silver wanted to use Angzi as another Michael Jordan to build. Angzi himself is also very good. This season so far, he has played a phenomenal personal performance. If he can continue to win the championship, plus the regular season MVP and other awards, he will surpass Michael Jordan is not a dream at all. Therefore, from the bottom of his heart, Adam Silver doesn't want to deal with Angzi strictly. Adam Silver had a headache all night, and several other senior leaders of the league discussed it all night, and finally came up with two sets of plans. One is to deal with it strictly, showing the determination of the alliance, and the other is to deal with it lightly, but increasing other punishments can be regarded as a warning to future generations. For the strict treatment, Angzi will be banned for 20 games, and Drummond Green will be banned more. He has been suspended for 23 games. After all, Drummond Green is the one to choose. Adam Silver looked at this strict treatment plan and frowned. He felt that the suspension was too much, so he turned his head and looked at the light treatment plan. To Angzi, 5 games banned and fined $100,000, to Drummond Green, 8 games banned and fined $150,000. After being suspended for 5 games, Adam Silver felt a bit too much, so at this moment, Adam Silver truly fell into a dilemma. No one knows what choice Adam Silver finally made. Until the next day, the Alliance promptly announced the punishment decision for this Oracle brawl. The league announced that Drummond Green will be banned for 20 games for kicking the entire fight. As for other Warriors players, Andrew Bogut and Andre Iguodala who participated in the fight will be punished respectively. 8 games and 5 games suspension penalties. Of course, there are certain fine penalties, of which Drummond Green directly fined $200,000. For him, who is still leading the rookie contract salary of the second-round rookie, $10,000 is enough for Drummond Green to feel distressed for a while. Because Drummond Green first provoked the incident with malicious actions, after the penalty was announced, the Warriors immediately announced that they would cooperate with the league to complete the penalty on Drummond Green, and the team would not help Drummond Green pay this fine. The punishment for the 76ers was also announced at the same time. The league announced that Angzi will be the first to take action, so he will be suspended for 17 games and will be fined $200,000. Jack Lauder and Norrens Knoll, who participated in the brawl, were also banned for 10 and 5 games respectively. Angzi was suspended for 17 games. When they first saw this number, many people, including Angzi, were shocked. Suspended for 17 games, this means that Angzi will miss the game for more than a month, and will not be able to participate in the main event Christmas War on December 25. This has a great impact on the league. Many people feel that Adam Silver is too hard-spirited to deal with this fight directly and strictly regardless of Ang Zi's influence. Including Ang Zi feels this way. Ang Zi even thinks that it will be banned for 17 games. If so many games are really suspended, even if Ang Zi has performed phenomenal personal performance in the regular season this season, it will not be eligible for the major awards. Therefore, Ang Zi's mood was a little worse when the suspension was released. It's just that Ang Zi is a quiet person in life, he didn't complain about anything, and silently put this kind of unhappiness in his heart. On the other hand, Drummond Green is very irritable after accepting the punishment. He is a player who is not good at controlling himself. Facing the penalty of 20 games, he is just ready to do a big game in the new season. Lamond Green was immediately unhappy, and all kinds of tantrums in the training hall eventually attracted Steve Kerr's anger. On social networking sites, celebrities have also begun to criticize this fight, especially Drummond Green. An ugly brawl. Both sides of the brawl are almost ashamed of the alliance, Larry Nance, the once famous Cleveland Cavaliers tweeted, with 2 disgusting emojis at the end. There is also Magic Johnson, who directly began to criticize Drummond Green. Drummond Green's kicking should not appear on the court. An 11 was forced to fight back after being helpless. In this brawl, an 11 he is a real victim, and Drummond Green is a villain, he should reflect on himself. Magic Johnson bluntly stated that Ang Zi was innocent. Obviously, Drummond Green's kicking and useless action, even these 20th century celebrities, are a little oversight. In contrast, Charles Barkley is more objective. Drummond Green's ugly kick triggered the entire fight, but Ang Zi's counter-attack also seemed impulsive. Both people need to reflect on themselves. The views of celebrities are roughly the same. Drummond Green made a big mistake, Ang Zi was impulsive at best, and overall there was nothing wrong with it. The views of the fans are similar. Even domestic fans have begun to yell at Drummond Green. After all, the current Ang Zi is the pride of the Chinese people. Drummond Green actually wants to abolish Ang Zi. This phenomenon is absolutely true for domestic fans. I don't want to see at this time, just as Ang Zi was depressed about the suspension, he received a call. The caller ID was, Ang Zi smiled and connected the phone. Hey, Bryant, did you call me something? Are you here to make fun of me? Haha, I haven't made fun of you yet. How is your injury? Can you still fight? As soon as they came up, the two attacked each other, but soon Kobe Bryant mentioned the subject of his call. Hey, An, stop joking, let me ask you, what do you think of the 17-game suspension? At this time, Ang Zi also knew that he had to tell the truth. What opinion? Oh no, of course it is too much. This is too much. Kobe Bryant snapped his fingers on the other end of the phone, so I'm here to teach you. Show you how to reduce the number of games suspended. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan-San Buletinji. Chapter 628. Did you know that if you are suspended for more than 12 games, you can appeal to the league? Appeals? How many appeals can be reduced? At least it can be reduced to less than 12 games. Ang Zi has the final say at the moment, and after the appeal, the suspension of 5 games can be reduced, which is still a good deal. At this time, Kobe Bryant on the other end of the phone continued, but I suggest you don't appeal now. After this storm, no one discusses the Oracle brawl, and you come to appeal again. Ang Zi nodded and understood. Kobe Bryant on the other end of the phone is about to hang up. An 11 smiled and said at this time, Bryant, why are you helping me? What? Kobe Bryant on the other end of the phone didn't seem to hear it clearly. Ang Zi repeated, I said, why are you helping me? You are not like a warm-hearted person. I watched your game. You played well this season. You averaged 33.6 points, 4.6 rebounds, 10.2 assists, 3.0 steals, and 1.4 blocks per game. This data is very strong. You will have a great season. I don't want to see it. You ruined this season because of the suspension. Kobe paused, then lowered his voice slightly mysteriously, and I think Mr. Adam Silver doesn't want to see you ruin this season because of the suspension. Anxie felt that Kobe Bryant was right. Even Adam Silver would not be willing to see Anxie ruin this great season due to the suspension. Therefore, Anxie firmly believes that Adam Silver will reduce the number of games, but reduce the time. Certainly not now. Ivor Clark also called Anxie. As Anxie's agent, when his employer caused an event with such a big impact, Ivor Clark had to quell the impact as soon as possible. And, what do you think now? Ivo Clark didn't put forward too many constructive opinions, but Anxie thought a lot here, and had a plan in his mind. Ivo, I already know what to do. Now you can arrange for me. In the next few rest days, I will go to the community to participate in service work. Besides, do you have any friends in the media industry? Ivor Clark heard Anxie's arrangement and immediately understood Anxie's thoughts. He nodded, yes, a few local reporters in Philadelphia have a good relationship with me. Among the national media reporters, Yahoo's Adrian Wojnarowski and the expert reporter Kevin Ding in the Bleacher are also journalists with good relations. That's okay, your national reporters don't bother them, just ask them to help write a report. As for a few local reporters in Philadelphia, please help me arrange an interview with the content about this fight. Anxie quickly arranged everything, and then he was about to log in to his social network account and send an apology. N11's thinking is very clear. What he has to do now is to admit his mistakes seriously, not only by confessing his mistakes in his mouth, but also in his actions. In short, Anxie wants to establish an image as much as possible, an honest and positive image. But Drummond Green didn't think so. He was quite unconvinced with the league's punishment. Although he used a malicious kick, Anxie was the first to do it. Why should his punishment be better? Anxie's Hong. Therefore, the unconvincing Drummond Green began to vent his grievances. He threw basketballs in the training hall. After the training, he used his Twitter trumpet to make a lot of dissatisfaction with the league's punishment. He didn't dare to use the tuba, obviously he was afraid of additional punishment from the league. But in action, Drummond Green still filed a complaint with the league in his agent, B.J. Armstrong. B.J. Armstrong is a very tough agent. He will always be very tough when facing the management of the major teams in the league. Now, he has to face the top of the league directly, which is unimaginable. Yes, the triumph of the Bulls is still so tough. He strongly stated that the league's handling of Drummond Green's 20-game suspension was too sloppy. In any case, this fight was the first action from Anxie, and Drummond Green was the victim of this fight. But obviously, when the punishment was just decided, B.J. Armstrong made such a remark, which was a provocation to the authority of the league, so the league immediately announced the rejection of the complaints of B.J. Armstrong and Drummond Green. B.J. Armstrong is still unconvinced and continues to appeal. He believes that the league's penalty for suspension exceeds 12 games and has violated Drummond Green's personal rights. This time, the league did not directly dismiss the appeals of B.J. Armstrong and Drummond Green, because this time the appeals of B.J. Armstrong and Drummond Green were in line with their rights. They could not directly dismiss it, but the league did not respond directly. Instead, it used the drag word trick, dragging to not give Drummond Green any reply. Compared with B.J. Armstrong and Drummond Green's hard steel approach, Anxie and Ivor Clark's handling are much smarter, and they began to show Drummond Green's smart people's approach. 10 days later, Anxie appeared in a welfare home on the outskirts of Philadelphia. "Hello, Mr. Anxie, thank you for coming." The person in charge of the orphanage is a thin white old man with glasses and gray hair. He shook hands with Anxie, and then walked toward the orphanage to welcome Anxie. The sports atmosphere in the United States is very strong. Even in the orphanage, there are large and small sports fields, such as basketball courts, football fields, and rugby fields. There are a lot of local basketball fans in Philadelphia, especially small fans. The 76ers won the championship last year, and they cultivated a lot of small fans born after 00 or even 05. These little fans are die-hard fans of Anxi. When Anxi appeared in the orphanage, more than 30 little fans of different sizes made huge noises. The immature children's voices combined into a tide of cheers. Anxi also waved his hands excitedly. It is true that at the beginning of this community service activity, he came with a purpose, but after it really came, Anxi was still very happy. He saw a group of innocent and cute little fans in the Philadelphia orphanage. Anxi walked closer, and the little fans gathered around. A short, white fan with glasses and blonde hair handed Anxi a poster and said with a greasy voice, "An, can you give me an autograph?" This little blonde fan looked like the youngest fan in the orphanage, and the other little fans actually gave way to the little blonde fan with love, waiting by the side, not to disturb the little blonde fan. Anxi smiled and said, "No problem." Then he asked, "What's your name?" "Clarence Clare," the little blonde fan continued to say greasily. At this time, Anxi began to sign the poster, but at the beginning he wrote ::. Obviously, this will be a completely different signature from others. Anxi continued to ask, "Do you like basketball very much?" "Yes," Clarence Clare nodded sharply. "So what kind of player do you want to be?" "A shooter, just like you did in the last game, shoot 3 points from 2 steps away from the 3-point line." At the end, Clarence Clare actually waved his tiny hand, looking very excited. The child fell into his expectation for the future again, and Anxi smiled and continued to write on the poster, "I wish you a great shooter and rule the NBA." Finally, the Anxi administration gave his name, Anxi. Clarence Clare happily took this special poster, then carefully held it in his palm, walked aside, and left the place for the little brothers who had been waiting behind him. A week later, a high school student named Clarence Clare came out. He wore sports glasses and ruled Pennsylvania with absolute precision three-pointers. He could even shoot 2 or 3 steps away from the 3-point line. With a three-pointer, although his body is weak, he can make all long-range shots if his opponent doesn't start defending him from halftime. This scene shocked many NBA scouts. They even began to strongly demand the league to allow Clarence Clare to participate in the NBA draft early. Of course, it was 10 years later. Now, Anxi is still on the field of the Philadelphia suburban orphanage, signing and taking photos for every little fan. After finishing all this, the person in charge of the Welfare Institute gave Anxi a microphone. Anxi cleared his throat and began to speak, I am very happy to be here to see you. You are all very cute children, I know you, they are all very loyal basketball fans. Maybe in 10 or 20 years, you will become an NBA star, or even a great NBA superstar, but before that, what I want to say is, if you want to be a great NBA superstar, you have to do the following and start small. You need to establish a good 3 views, you need to work hard, God rewards your diligence. Anxi found that his unwritten speech became more like a speech by the leaders of the Celestial dynasty. But when he saw that the audience was a group of whites and blacks, Anxi knew that he needed to make some changes. A reporter from a local Philadelphia TV station held up a camera to film Anxi's speech. This scene will be broadcast on Philadelphia TV in the evening. If Anxi has access, it can even be broadcast on Turner Sports TV and ESPN TV. This is Anxi's propaganda offensive. In nominal terms, he wants to make up for his faults with this kind of community service. In fact, he is giving the Alliance a step down, and he wants to let the Alliance know that he is facing this brawl. How perfect the remedy was done, let Adam Silver know that at the right time, Anxi's suspension can be reduced. Of course, when the speech progressed to this moment, Anxi's original intention had changed. He felt that since he was here, he had to do something practical. So, he told a little story to these little fans in the audience. When I was young, I also liked basketball very much, and my dad also liked basketball very much, so he asked me to practice every day until I was bored. Later, I became a little bit reluctant to practice. This is very common, and maybe you will also have this situation. When I was reluctant to practice, my father began to force me to practice, but after a long time, my father suddenly found that I had no progress, because I was not practicing with all my heart and soul. Yes, so after a while, no one forced me. My skills gradually declined during that time. My father didn't care about me, no one cares about me, and I even stopped practicing. Until one day, the school held a class competition. In the end, Angzi summed up the core idea of the story. In short, to play basketball, what we need is a perseverance. We need persistence, and what we need is conscious persistence, not persistence under the influence of others. If you can keep practicing, maybe success will not be far away. After Angzi finished speaking, there was applause at the scene. Of course, the applause of the children was not loud enough, only a crackling sound was heard from the audience, and the little fans clapped their hands in excitement. Angzi saw the little blond boy wearing glasses, the little boy named Clarence Clare, and he clapped his palms vigorously, looking very excited. So Angzi continued, for example, if you become a great archer next, then, starting from today, practice 100 three-pointers every day, from near to far, one day you will be successful, provided that, you have to persevere, rain or shine. An 11 pointed to the open-air court in the orphanage and clearly expressed what he meant. Clarence Clare clenched his fists, and all Angzi's words were heard in his ears, perhaps also in his heart. The speech is over. Angzi began to help this group of young fans in the orphanage to practice ball under the filming of the TV station, and at the end of the community service activities, Angzi brought him a batch of sports equipment and basketball, including his own Philadelphia No. 7 jersey, and a batch of Dragons Descendant Generation sneakers with a specific shoe size were given to the little fans in the orphanage. The show itself was a community service mostly showcasing, and it ended in this way. This community service activity was broadcasted by the local TV station in Philadelphia, but the initial version was only a short version of the TV station. I don't know where it came from. The full version came out, so many people watched the full version of the video. Began to take the initiative to admit his mistakes to Angzi, and acted to make up for his wrong behavior. At this time, the time is right, and it is not even necessary for Angzi and Evo Clark to appeal to the league. The league announced just before Christmas that the suspension of more than 12 games was not in compliance with the U.S. Federal Act. Therefore, Angzi and Drummond Green were suspended for the number of games. Will be reduced to 12 games. At this time, Angzi has missed 6 games, and the next Christmas game will be the 7th game that Angzi missed. Angzi thought he would definitely miss the Christmas battle, but on December 24, the night of Christmas Eve, the league referee committee issued another announcement overnight.